So, would I recommend this car? Well, this is the BMW X4M, and on paper, it has the ideal recipe to make a perfect car. It has the space and practicality of an SUV, and it has the performance of a sports car. BMW's idea with this car was beautifully simple. You take the ordinary X4 and you make it as monstrous and as fun to drive as the M4. In fact, internally, they used to refer to this thing as the M4X before they settled on the X4M name. And the engine in this thing is an absolute peach. It's a 3-litre straight-six designed by the folks at BMW M to serve as the beating heart of the next generation M3 and M4. In the standard X4M, it makes 473 horsepower, and in this, the X4M Competition pack, it makes 503 with 447 foot-pounds of torque. There are good bits. First of all, the performance is pretty epic. It will bang out 0 to 62 in under 4.5 seconds, but we kind of expected that. It's an M car. The problem is, the performance isn't actually that exciting. Part of the issue is that the exhaust and engine noise are really disappointing, with fake sounds pumped through the speakers in a way that fails to add any theatre. Fast SUVs tend to be big, bombastic things, but the X4M is nowhere near as theatrical as rivals like the Jaguar F-Pace SVR or Mercedes GLC 63. It doesn't sound that bad out the back when you're actually listening to the exhaust from the exterior, but inside the car, from a driver's perspective, it's not that impressive. The next big issue for me is the transmission. It's really smooth, probably too smooth. One of the things I loved about the M3 and the M4 is that you had the option to make your shifts really aggressive. Whenever you change gears flat out, it will give you a huge thump in the back to let you know that you're changing gear. Almost to the point when the car would actually lose a little bit of traction when changing gear. It could be a little bit frightening at times, but that was part of that car's charm. And this is lacking in that charm completely. Both those previous points could be considered subjective, but what isn't subjective is the quality of the ride. It doesn't matter whether you're in the most comfortable suspension setting or the most sporty, this car is permanently and inexplicably harsh. It crashes over speed bumps, it amplifies potholes. This is not an exaggeration. I'm on a reasonably rough stretch of road right now, and it's like driving a racing car on the public road. It's far too firm to be enjoyable. I would argue that a lot of people buy SUVs because they want a bit of comfort. And if you want comfort, you're not going to get it from the X4M. And that's a shame really, because this car has a really nice cabin, one that's a pleasure to spend time in. The design is clean and modern, and it's reasonably practical. First of all, these seats are really good. I wouldn't say they're comfortable, you can't really tell because the rest of the ride is so firm, but they are electrically adjusted, they have a memory feature, they're heated, and the whole thing is covered in quite nice merino leather. Practicality-wise, it's actually really good. You get 2 cup holders, a wireless phone charger, lots of storage space in the center console, a really big glove box, and decent-sized door bins. You also get really good space around the back. There's a reasonably big boot and good cabin space, even if there isn't quite as much room as you'd get in the X3M, which has a much more traditional SUV shape. The tech is quite impressive too, even if it's not necessarily cutting edge. You get this digital key with a touchscreen that gives you information on what your car is up to at any given time. Plus, you get a 10-inch infotainment display, although sadly this isn't the latest version 7 of BMW's iDrive system, so you don't get their fancy Hello BMW voice assistant, and the instrument binnacle isn't the latest version with a big map between the speedo and the rev counter. But if you like buttons, then you'll probably like the X4M because it comes with a range of shortcut buttons for changing the behavior of the car on the road. You can change the engine performance, the suspension slightly, and the steering setup. And once you've chosen your ideal combination, you can then save them to these M1 and M2 shortcut buttons on the steering wheel. Word of warning though, it almost doesn't matter what setup you choose because at the end of the day, the X4M will always feel quite aggressive. So the car might not excel in places where you expect, but its hardcore focus does give it a pretty extraordinary handling ability. The sporty suspension does mean that this car handles quite well. I haven't driven this on a track, but I expect that if you were to track this thing, then it would actually be quite impressive. Body roll is kept to a minimum. Doesn't really roll at all, really. There's loads of grip through the corners, and once you come out the exit of a corner, you can bang on the accelerator and it just takes off. It actually seems like they've designed this car more for the track than for the road, but you've got to ask yourself, who's going to take an X4M on a racetrack? You'd have to be pretty brave. So, who's this car going to appeal to? Well, certainly not the mass market, but I do think that there are people out there who will enjoy this car. People who specifically want to stand out from the crowd. People who don't want to blend in with ordinary vehicles. The X4M is a statement car. You don't buy this thing for any reason other than you want to show off. And if you want to show off and stand out, then I can't think of many cars that do a better job. However, as a performance SUV, this is less than perfect. There are definitely more exciting, more comfortable ways to spend £80,000.